This is the verified dollar-by-dollar breakdown of exactly what Young Dolph left behind. Honestly, the numbers are so staggering that while I was putting this together, I actually had to stop, sit down, and double-check every single detail, just to make sure I was comfortable sharing it with you. We're talking about $12 million in jewelry alone. That's just the jewelry. It doesn't include his portfolio of over 100 properties in Memphis, his independent record label that continues to pull in more than $1.5 million annually even after his passing, his car collection, or his masters. We are strictly talking about the ice he wore around Memphis every day like it was nothing. And compared to the empire he built, it practically was. But here's the wildest part. Most people have no idea what actually makes up that total. They see the chains on Instagram, leave a hype comment or share a photo to their story and just keep scrolling. Nobody has ever sat down to break it down piece by piece, stone by stone, and watch by watch to explain where every cent of that $12 million is tied up, until now. I promise you, by the time we finish this video, you are going to see Young Dolph in a completely different light. He wasn't just a rapper or a Memphis legend. He was one of the smartest and most calculated individuals to ever navigate this industry. This collection tells a story that his music only began to touch upon. Let's dive in. To understand why this collection is so significant, and why every piece carries so much weight, you have to understand who Young Dolph was at his core. This wasn't just a rapper showing off jewelry. This was a man who used every chain, watch, and ring to make a statement about power, independence, and the reality of building an empire from scratch in a city that offers no head starts. Born Adolph Robert Thornton Jr. on July 27, 1985, in Chicago, his heart and soul were always rooted in Memphis, Tennessee. Raised in South Memphis by his grandmother while his parents struggled with addiction, his journey didn't begin in a studio or a boardroom. It started in the neighborhood that would either break you or forge you into something unbreakable. And Dolph? He was forged. He started rapping in the early 2000s, burning his own CDs and selling them by hand long before he had any real team behind him. He dropped his debut mixtape Paper Route Campaign in 2008. But instead of following the typical path, running to a major label with his hand out, hoping for a shot, he did something almost unheard of at that level. He built Paper Route Empire, a completely independent label where he kept every dollar, owned every master recording, signed his own artists, and answered to no one. There was no A&R telling him what to say, no executive skimming his royalties, and no lopsided distribution deal owning his catalog for decades. It was just Dolph, his vision, and the grind of a man who knew early on that the only person you can truly count on is yourself. Now, there's a specific detail I need you to remember because it connects directly to the jewelry collection we're breaking down. In 2018, at the absolute peak of his career, when he was a household name, a major label offered him a $22 million deal. $22 million was sitting right there on the table, just one signature away. Dolph turned it down. He walked away from $22 million because he understood something about this industry that most people don't figure out until it's far too late. He realized that a single check, no matter how massive the amount, is never worth sacrificing your ownership. He looked at everything he was constructing, the label, his catalog, the real estate, and the brand, and calculated that he'd earn far more in the long run by staying independent rather than cashing out and handing someone else the keys to his empire. That mindset, that absolute refusal to trade ownership for a quick payday, is the exact same energy that defined his jewelry collection. Dolph wasn't buying these pieces to impress the industry or to feel relevant, nor was he feeling the pressure to keep up with other rappers. He was buying it simply because he actually had the money to back it up. He truly owned his income. Every piece he wore was a physical, wearable representation of the empire he built with his own hands. On November 17, 2021, at just 36 years old, Memphis lost its king. He was shot outside Makita's Homemade Butter Cookies, a black-owned bakery he genuinely loved. A place he promoted on his social media for free because he believed in reinvesting in his community. After more than 100 shots were fired, the city went silent, but what he left behind is exactly why we are here today. This is where most people completely missed the point. They assumed Dolph's jewelry collection was just a wealthy rapper doing typical wealthy rapper things, buying big loud pieces or whatever happened to be trending. But that isn't how he operated in any area of his life, and his jewelry was no exception. Dolph built this collection the same way he built Paper Route Empire, strategically, intentionally, and with a specific purpose behind every single acquisition. He wasn't just walking into a store and picking whatever was in the display case. He was working with the absolute best in the game, like Icebox in Atlanta, Johnny Dang out of Houston. These are jewelers who cater to the most elite clientele in hip-hop, and he commissioned one-of-one custom pieces that simply could not be replicated or duplicated. Even if someone else had the money, they couldn't just go out and buy these. These were bespoke works of art created specifically for one man, and the collection grew steadily and quietly over the years. That's another detail people often miss. Dolph wasn't announcing every single purchase. He wasn't doing jewelry reveals just for clout. He added pieces when he wanted, wore what he felt like wearing, and let the collection speak for itself. It's only when you sit down and inventory everything, cross-referencing police reports, GQ features, documented appearances, and credible estimates from high-level jewelers, that you realize the scale of what he actually owned. Let's start with the watches, because the watches alone are enough to make your jaw drop before we even get to the chains. Dolph had at least 3 confirmed watches that we can put a hard verified number on. Combined, those 3 pieces represent over $800,000 in value. And that's before we even touch the crown jewel of his watch collection. First, there's a Patek Philippe, confirmed not by a blog or a fan account, but by an actual police report from 2019. After his car was broken into, valued at $85,000, that watch is an unimaginable amount of money for most people. For Dolph, though, that was just his everyday carry. It was the watch he'd put on without a second thought. Second on the list is a Richard Mille, also confirmed by that same 2019 police report, valued at $230,000. These 2 watches were just sitting in his car at a Cracker Barrel in Fairburn, Georgia, while he casually grabbed lunch. Because that's simply how Dolph moved through the world. But the third watch is what truly separates this collection from everyone else's. We're talking about his custom Richard Mille RM1103. This isn't something you can just walk into a boutique and buy. The RM1103 is already one of the brand's most technically complex models, featuring a skeletonized dial that exposes the inner movement and a chronograph complication that takes master watchmakers years to perfect. Built from the same materials Formula One engineers use for their components, the base model is already elite by any standard. But Dolph took it a step further. He had the entire case, bezel and dial flooded with icy blue and white diamonds. Every single surface that could hold a stone was covered. The white rubber strap is the only part of this watch that isn't iced out. And honestly, it feels intentional. Like the contrast is there just to give your eyes a place to rest before they go back to the sparkle. This watch reportedly cost over $500,000 after customization. That's $500,000 on his wrist on a random Tuesday like it was nothing. But here is where it gets crazy, and this is the part the blogs completely got wrong. This information has been sitting in plain sight, but nobody bothered to actually verify it before they started talking. Most people, when they discuss Dolph's jewelry, focus on the chains and throw out casual figures, maybe $100,000 here or a couple $100,000 there. While that sounds impressive, it isn't even close to the real number. It's not even in the same area code as what this collection was actually worth. Let me give you the real figure on just one chain, the Sonic the Hedgehog piece. Now, hold on. I already know what some of you are doing. You're smirking, thinking this is just a punchline. Sonic the Hedgehog on a chain sounds like a gimmick, like something a rapper does just for a viral moment. But that reaction, that instinct to laugh, is exactly what Dolph was betting on. Because only a man who is completely secure in himself would commission a Sonic the Hedgehog chain as the centerpiece of a multi-million-dollar collection. It's the move of someone who has stopped caring about industry opinions and dresses strictly for himself. Someone with enough wealth and respect to do exactly what he wants. Only that kind of person puts Sonic at the top of his jewelry hierarchy. Icebox in Atlanta spent weeks on this piece. Not days, weeks. They created a fully 3-dimensional Sonic figure. It's not flat, not a silhouette, and not just an engraving. It's a sculpted 3D piece that stands off the pendant like a museum exhibit, attached to a fully flooded Cuban link chain. The diamonds are VVS clarity with a unique blue hue that you can't just get from a standard supplier. These are rare stones sourced specifically for this project. During his GQ jewelry tour, Dolph went on the record saying this chain makes him feel like a kid again. He didn't say it made him feel powerful or signaled his status. He said it made him feel like a kid. That is the most human and authentic thing a person can say about a piece of jewelry, and it reveals everything about who Dolph was beneath the ice. This chain alone is worth $2 million. That's $2 million for a Sonic the Hedgehog pendant. When you see it in photos or during his GQ feature, you understand exactly why. This isn't just some cartoon chain, it's fine art. It's the kind of craftsmanship that belongs in a gallery, yet it was worn through South Memphis by a man who started with nothing and built everything. But that was only the beginning. Almost every time Dolph was photographed, whether in the studio, on stage, or doing interviews, the Sonic chain was usually paired with his pre-chain, the Paper Route Empire piece. This was his identity piece. Without him saying a word, it told the world exactly who he was, what he stood for, and what he had built. Crafted in solid yellow gold, the pre-lettering is completely iced out with white diamonds, with the full words Paper Route Empire spelled out in fine detail beneath the bold initials. He usually paired it with a heavy Cuban or Franco link, sometimes stacking thinner diamond chains on top. The craftsmanship is clean, yet loud in the best possible way. Exactly like the brand Dolph built. Estimates for this chain range between $500,000 and $1 million. The reason for that range is simple. The PRE chain wasn't just jewelry. It was the physical embodiment of a business decision that made Dolph millions. It was the wearable version of walking away from that $22 million deal. Every time he put that chain on, he was wearing his independence. You really think a piece like that is priced like a standard custom chain? No way. Some industry insiders believe even the high-end estimates for that piece are conservative. Then there is the Johnny Dang piece, and this one deserves its own moment. If you know anything about hip-hop jewelry culture, you know Johnny Dang. a Vietnamese immigrant who started out repairing jewelry at a flea market in Houston and worked his way up to becoming the most sought-after custom jeweler in the game. When Dolph commissioned a piece from him, he wasn't just buying jewelry, he was getting a masterpiece from a legend. What Johnny Dang created for Dolph was a fully iced-out 3D cartoon figure modeled after Dolph himself. It featured a fitted cap, a chain around its neck, yes, a chain on the chain, which is the kind of detail only a true enthusiastic appreciates, fresh sneakers, and a double cup in hand. The micro details are what take this from impressive to legendary. Tiny glasses, a miniature watch on the figure's wrist, and accessories within accessories. It uses multiple diamond colors, white, blue, pink, and yellow, with micropave setting across every inch. A piece like this runs between $130,000 and $150,000. You can feel the value of every single dollar when you see that piece up close. Then there's the Icy Smurf chain, which might be the most Dolph piece in the entire collection after the Sonic one. It features blue diamonds covering the Smurf's body, white diamonds on the oversized hat, and get this, a rose gold watch on the Smurf's own wrist. It's a cartoon character wearing jewelry on a piece of jewelry that Dolph wore as jewelry. That level of detail and commitment to doing the most defines Dolph in a single pendant. Experts value this piece between $85,000 and $120,000. And we haven't even touched on the rings yet. This is where people really started to grasp how deep his collection went. Ironically, it took a robbery for the full picture to come into focus. In March 2019, Dolph was in Fairburn, Georgia, and stopped at a Cracker Barrel for lunch. It was just a routine midday stop. He went inside, and within minutes, several individuals approached his custom camouflage Mercedes-Benz SUV in the parking lot. Surveillance footage from a nearby Quick Trip caught them approaching the vehicle 3 separate times. Police noted that the taillights flashed in a way that suggested the car might have been accidentally unlocked. They smashed the window and cleaned it out. According to the official police report, here's what was taken. A Richard Mille watch valued at $230,000, a Patek Philippe watch valued at $85,000, a $57,000 diamond chain, another diamond chain worth $27,000, Cartier sunglasses worth $24,000, a Glock, a $300 Pirelli backpack, a MacBook, an iPad AirPods, and $2,000 in cash. In total, nearly $500,000 vanished from a parking lot while the man was just having lunch. But here is what I really want you to focus on. Not what was taken, but what wasn't. The $2 million Sonic chain? Not in the car. The custom $500,000 Richard Mille RM1103? Not in the car. The 19-carat diamond ring? Not in the car. The pieces that truly defined him, the irreplaceable items that told his story, were all safe. What they grabbed was essentially his everyday carry, the watch he wore for a road trip, the chains he threw on for a casual day, and his backup sunglasses. His casual gear was worth nearly $500,000. Let that sink in for a second. If the items he left at home were worth more than everything that was stolen combined, what does that tell you about the true scale of his collection? Now let's talk about the rings, because this is where the internet has been the most vocal and the most incorrect at the same time. A dangerous combination. Dolph owned a 19-carat diamond ring. To be clear, that's not 19 individual diamonds. That is 19 carats of total diamond weight set into a single ring. That is an incredible amount of stone for a single piece. Multiple credible sources have verified its value at $700,000. That's a $700,000 ring he wore constantly. It appeared in photo shoots, interviews, and candid shots. Sometimes he'd press his hands together as if in prayer, and that ring would be right in the center of the frame, catching every bit of light and telling the story of his success without him saying a word. On top of that, and completely separate from the 19-carat piece, was the $sign ring, a large dollar symbol entirely iced out with white and teal blue diamonds on a thick gold band that was also covered in stones. Even a conservative estimate puts that piece between $75,000 and $100,000. Then there was the diamond star ring, a 5-pointed star with every surface flooded with white diamonds, sized large enough to cover 2 fingers. That's another $60,000 to $80,000. Just between those 3 rings, you're looking at over $800,000, and none of them were anywhere near that car in the Cracker Barrel parking lot. But here is what I really want you to consider, because this is the part most videos about rapper jewelry completely skip, yet it's the part that matters most. A lot of rappers buy jewelry. A lot of rappers flex their jewelry on the internet and in their music videos. But here is what most of them aren't telling you. A significant portion of that jewelry is financed. It's on payment plans or leveraged against label advances that the artist has to pay back through royalties before they ever see $1 of actual income. The chain you see a rapper wearing in a video might literally be deducted from the money he earned for making that very video. That is not what Dolph was doing. Not even slightly. Dolph owned his music from day one. He owned his masters, a rare achievement in an industry designed to strip artists of exactly that. He owned his distribution, his label, and over 100 properties in Memphis. He turned down $22 million because the strings attached to that money were worth more to the label than the check was worth to him. He generated his income independently, kept it independently, and invested it into real estate and businesses. When he went to Icebox or Johnny Dang, he paid for his pieces in full with money he actually earned from work he actually owned. So, when Dolph walked into Icebox and said, "Make me a Sonic the Hedgehog chain and I want to spend $2 million on it," that wasn't a man going into debt to look rich. That was the move of a genuinely wealthy man, someone who built his fortune on a rigid philosophy of ownership and chose to spend it on something that connected him back to the kid he was in South Memphis, before the streets and the industry tried to complicate his life. This is a fundamentally different conversation than the one most people have when they talk about rapper jewelry. And here is the layer that nobody addresses. What does it mean for this collection to exist as his legacy? What does it mean for his partner Mia J and his children Trey and Aria? This is the same man who bought a property for his kids every single year, so that by the time they turned 18, they would each have 18 properties generating income for the rest of their lives. The jewelry is part of an estate that as of 2005 generates between $1.5 million and $2.2 million annually from streaming royalties, paper route empire income, merchandise, music licensing, and real estate. We are looking at an estate valued anywhere between $15 million and $25 million. Depending on how you account for the posthumous growth of his catalog and the ongoing appreciation of everything Dolph built. The jewelry is a central part of that legacy, a physical, tangible record of a man's journey from his grandmother's house in South Memphis to the very top of the independent rap game. Every piece in this collection tells a story that goes far deeper than the stones themselves. The Sonic chain wasn't just a $2 million pendant. It was a 36-year-old man reconnecting with the childhood he never fully got to experience, wearing his joy as loudly and unapologetically as he lived his life. The PRE chain wasn't just about iced out letters. It was a declaration of independence, worn every day as a reminder of exactly what he refused to give up. The 19-carat ring wasn't just a status symbol. It was his way of saying without speaking a word that the empire he built was real, permanent, and entirely his. Ultimately, his jewelry collection serves as an autobiography. It's a timeline of who Adolph Robert Thornton Jr. was, what he valued, what made him proud, and what he refused to compromise on. No matter how much money was put on the table, that is what makes this collection worth more than any dollar figure we could ever put on it.